Live again.
Out of his car.
Senate Transportation Committee back on in session, and we'll continue our discussion about financing this morning with the Agency of Transportation. And we have the Contract Administration Unit, Jeremy Stevens, is that right? Okay, well, good
I'm
morning.
gonna get out my org chart here.
Tell us all about you.
Hey, good morning. My name is Jeremy Stevens. I am the new Contract Administration Chief at AOT. My predecessor is behind you, Maureen Parker, and happy to be here. Some of you may recognize me from my time testifying in the Committee on Institutions with BGS.
Okay, you look familiar, right? I saw you
So
somewhere.
I saw the look,
Yeah.
So I made the switch over back in March.
Oh.
Happy to be here. Thank you for having us. So, Contract Administration. If we can switch the slide there. There we go. Is broken up into 4 groups. It's the construction contracts, services, grants, and work authorizations. And it's a group of 18, if you count me. And we'll go into what each of these groups do, starting with construction contracts. The biggest task for construction contracts is the procurement and contract execution for design, bid, build agreements. As you can see, we did 76 projects last year.
What is design build? I know I heard it many times. What's your description of this?
There's design, bid, build, there's design, build, and there's a few other variations as well. But design, bid, build is what I would call the traditional sense of advertising for construction agreements. Okay, so a group designs it, sometimes in-house, sometimes external with an in-house project manager. Then we advertise it for bids. We get the bids back, right? And once we execute the agreement, the contractor builds it.
Oh,
That's the
okay, then the bids come in, the best comp, the lowest bidder. Do you have to take the lowest bidder? Is that the way it works?
We do not have to take the lowest bidder by state regulation, but by federal regulation, we generally do. Depending on who our public partner is.
I heard both sides, yeah.
The state of Vermont is the best value, and generally what happens is we will take low bid because it's pretty difficult to justify not doing that.
But you don't have to.
Correct.
But you have to have a reason why you did take a little bit, right?
For federal government, generally we're required to take low bids.
I've asked this before, and I can't remember where I asked it. It might have been across the committee. Do we take into fact any minority owned or any, do we take into fact of that when you were accepting bids as a formula that we use?
It's a great question, and that's generally managed by civil rights. They'll tell us on whether or not we have a project-specific disadvantaged business enterprise goal that we're required to hit. Generally, at this time, it's a program-wide goal that we ask contractors to provide us their best faith effort to hire subcontractors as DPs. And so there's no requirement, generally no requirement. We have some funding partners that require it. FAA, Aviation Administration, or the Rail Administration may require a project-specific goal, but it's pretty uncommon at this current time.
If a bid is $50 million, for example, and somebody's 10 million difference, you gotta analyze why they're 10 million different. I mean, isn't that, you gotta look at that again, because they must have missed something or something. I can see, a couple $1 million, when you get 10, 12 million, it's gotta be a reason for that.
Yes, sir. There is a bid analysis process, and it's quite extensive. And we try to help facilitate that. We don't do the analysis. That goes back to the engineers and such that ran the estimation, right? And they compare what they received at the bid compared to what they estimated, and they see if they can justify any differences there. Right?
So it's a structured scoring method that they use.
I'd have to defer that to the highway or other project delivery programs. I'm not sure if I would call it a scoring system. I believe they go line by line and they look at the difference in cost from the estimate from the bid they received. And if it's not close, they try to understand why that is and decide from there whether or not to proceed with the project.
Maybe not scoring, but they could disqualify a bid if they think that.
It always amazed me when they did a job like the drawbridge, 70 million or 80 million. The thought that must go into that, or the research to come up with, when you're talking 70, 80, 90 million dollars, you could leave 10 million on the table. And especially something that takes 3 years to build. It's just amazing to me, an outsider looking at something like that, say, how can you estimate a 3-year project of the hours it's gonna take, and boy, it's just crazy, because you don't know how many hours you gotta document every single thing to make any money on the thing, or,
Well, the entity preparing the bid, the expertise to
yeah,
do that.
no, I know,
Absolutely.
it's not, the guy will sit there with a pencil.
And if you're off a lot, the contractor,
Well, that's what I'm saying, if you leave 10 million on the table, for example, on a project like that, you say, what the hell did I do? I could have had 9 million more.
So maybe you answered it before, I apologize.
I don't need that. I don't need.
Thought about what you were saying, but a bid that comes in way under, you do look at that and say, there's just no way you can do it for that, or you can't set yourself up for failure, right?
So again, contract admin doesn't perform that function. We help facilitate it. We'll kick it back to the project delivery program that's working on that project. And they'll run the analysis. Unfortunately, we don't get too many bids that are far below the estimate. And I do believe that no matter what that bid is, they're running an analysis to make sure it's close to what they're expecting. And as a low bid might look really good to us, there's still some grave concerns in that maybe the bidder didn't fully understand what's required for that project.
Does the contractor know what your estimate was when they bid?
I believe it's advertised with a range,
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
not
So
a
they got
specific
something to
estimate.
Follow that, okay, so if you estimate 25 million, at least they start, they go from there probably.
There's a ladder of
Okay.
if our estimate is in a certain range, that's how we'll advertise it. We'll say, I can't remember what the range is off the top of my head, 10 to 15 or 10 to 20.
Okay, it's amazing, thank you, I just never understood how that works, it's very complicated. Okay, go right ahead, sorry.
No problem.
We will get you off something.
Yeah.
Well, if I recall, it's always a possibility, and we're welcome to it.
That's good.
So as you can see, the 76 projects in design, bid, build, right? That's our traditional procurement set. Not that many projects, but these are generally larger projects.
Wow.
281 million, right? Total funds established for those agreements. 44 million in state funds. The construction contracts group also does a whole bunch of ancillary agreements to help facilitate the design, bid, build process. And I have those listed here: finance and maintenance agreements, railroad agreements, utility agreements, interstate agreements, some other things that need to happen in the sidelines in order for us to get to that large contract agreement and do a design, bid, build project. Some of the other tasks that this group runs is the indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity procurement. Many of you probably heard this as IDIQ. And running total today is 58 primary contracts, and those are various scopes of work. You know, you could have a pavement scope of work, you could have a guardrail scope of work, different categories there. And throughout those primary contracts and those categories, 78 task orders were issued in FY22 for a total of 22 million. These IDIQ agreements are go-to for some other uses, such as emergency, right? If we have an emergency crop up, we don't have the time to go through a traditional design, bid, build, procurement set. And so we're trying to, at that point, identify contractors that we already have agreements with, because we know they have the insurance coverages, they understand how we operate, et cetera. And it's really easy for us to transition emergency work to existing agreements if that became necessary.
So like the culvert collapse on the interstate, is that an example of where that kicked in?
Yes, ma'am. Excellent question. I have it here to mention that the I-89 culvert failure did utilize the IDIQ agreements in order to get that emergency work underway. And then we have another subset called job order contracts, or also known as JOCs. And there's more contracts here, more vendors providing services here, but these are very small repair-related agreements, and it's only state funds. So you can see we have 98 primary contracts, 700 task orders, but only 5 million spent. This is very small project-related work. Equipment rentals, that sort of stuff. So next up, I have services contracts. Excellent. So services for FY22, they did 19 new RFPs, requests for proposals. And from those RFPs and existing contracts, they issued 226 new contracts or amendments right? And total maximum amount of all service contracts amendments was $304 million in FY22. Services is impressive. There's a lot of different categories, a lot of different agreement types to help facilitate the construction side of the house, if you will, right?
We did some contracts with private plowers, I think, this year for some of the interstate ramps or rest areas or something.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay.
That's item number one, winter maintenance.
Yeah.
And with the shortage of state staff to
Right.
plow roads, we went to our vendors and asked for help and see if we can get some more bodies and seats and.
It's not a bad idea to go to a smaller job to subcontract it out.
Thank you. We thought, we liked the idea. Come to find out, there's a few hurdles to get over there.
Sure.
You can't just put anybody behind a state-owned vehicle, right?
Yeah.
But it worked out and the agencies came together and we
They
made it
were
happen.
using state-owned vehicles.
Well, I thought they use their own plows, their own pickups. or something.
It's set up for both. So we
For
have
both,
some
okay.
vendors that would just provide their own equipment if
Okay.
necessary, but some of our maintenance, and I should defer back to our division of maintenance and fleet, but some of our maintenance requires specific equipment that
Right.
isn't owned by everyday vendor, right? So
Right.
we let them
Okay, I
use.
didn't realize that. I thought it was just their
And this isn't a conclusive set of the service type contracts, but just wanted to give you an idea of the various things that services is working on to try to help facilitate anything from maintenance to repairs to full-on construction.
Good.
And our work authorizations group. And the work authorizations group, I have a statement in here, but I want to try to define it better. So the statement, right, is the work authorization requests are for second tier solicitations on retainer type service contracts. Right, so service contracts puts out a retainer type agreement for engineering services. Okay, and you have multiple contractors providing consultant services under that agreement. And in order to access that agreement, the agency will develop a work authorization request and get the consultant on board. And that work authorization request comes to the work authorizations group and then review that for compliance with code compliance, both federal and state. And make sure that that looks good before they approve and allow the work to proceed under that retainer agreement.
5,000 invoices review. Oh,
They also do invoice review and approval, absolutely, for the services side of the house, right? So, and this pairs, as you can imagine, everything we do is pairing with finance, everything we do is pairing with audit, we already heard from this morning. So it's definitely a team effort. And they also do the consultant evaluations. So when work is complete, every year, they'll run out and collect all the consultant evaluations and have that to share with all of the other project managers so they understand how consultants are doing, where we need to improve, and what's working really well.
Is this the consultants evaluating the contract or somebody else evaluating the consultants?
This is the Agency of Transportation project manager or contract manager evaluating the consultant that provided personal services.
And that goes into a database. And so when you're looking at hiring somebody else, you can go back and look at the past evaluation.
Correct. It really is just a tool for the project delivery bureaus to use. How they use it, I'm not exactly sure, but it is a tool available to them.
You do that without, outside of the services sector, so for the other.
It's just for, I believe there is a contractor for construction related services that evaluation performed, but I believe that's done by the highway division, if I remember correctly. Yeah, we don't do that. And the grants team, one of our more overlooked teams, and this is a busy group. There's 3 folks, right? And they pumped out 745 grants and amendments last fiscal year for a total of 220 million.
wow.
And that is twice as much as the previous fiscal year.
Yeah.
So dollars
That's
are
why
up,
we had more money to give out, more federal money probably.
likely the cause,
Yeah, it's several a day.
if any.
Well, one
It's incredible.
Good thing about the added federal money was at least it went to infrastructure, that project you can see done. It's gonna help towns, it's gonna help state to get ahead of you can see what's happening with the money. It's right there. It's not an ongoing expense because projects that need to be done anyway. So I like that idea.
This is an amazing group that gets a lot of dollars into the community. You know, we have a lot of subrecipients. I didn't name them all here, but AOT has at least 16 grant programs throughout the various divisions, right? And these are just a handful. Several of these are all from the municipal assistance program.
Some of these towns have never had those projects done without this money.
Exactly.
A salt shed or whatever they're doing, I know.
And we provide a lot of education and assistance as well. You know, Audit was here, Eric Oberlin was here talking about how sometimes towns don't have the manpower or staff, excuse me, to get their single audit report in on time. You know, and we do a lot of facilitation. They're trying to help them and help the audit team get everything together so that we can issue these grants to towns, for example. There's a lot of other different types of subrecipients that towns.
It isn't just a highway town, highway grant program, it's above and beyond that, because I know they get money, but,
Yeah.
it's good,
There's even, I'm not sure if I don't think I put it in here, but there's even, research grants. We
really.
do a lot of research and stuff, yeah.
Good.
Yeah, it's a
So
good team.
under town highway aid, class 2 road, you would be doing grants to every from the state. Well, probably Buell's Gore and a few of those, maybe not, but,
Or call it.
well, Burke Hollow. That's part of the town of Burke, though.
So I might take this opportunity to answer your question with a little bit of our grant process. And so the grant program is managed by others. And so the town highway class 2 roadways, I do believe, falls in the municipal assistance program. And what they do is they issue a notice of funding opportunity. They know they have funds available. They issue a notice of funding opportunity to advertise it. And then towns that qualify would then propose. And then that program would choose which towns will be awarded money. And I'm not too sure if it's all towns that propose or some, or if there's a scoring criteria. We have to go to the program to figure that out. Once they have that determined on who's going to get money, then they come to us and they say, this is the money, these are our subrecipients, please execute these grants right away. So we start to work.
So the money that goes out to municipalities based on the road mileage, which is town highway aid, does that go through a grant process, or is that just simply determined by
Mileage of road.
by the mileage of roads?
I believe it's by the mileage of the roads, but we'll confirm that.
It's always
I
been
can't imagine
mileage.
you should have a grant application in that situation, that since that kind of is almost an entitlement.
Right, does the money come
Yeah.
from the state directly, or does it go through AOT to the towns? It could just come from.
I know it's mileage because every town tries to get a couple.
Yeah.
of
That's state funded, and that would go through AOT to the towns.
Why wouldn't it go straight to the towns?
Because I'm not sure that some of that is matched. I think some of it's
Yeah.
just straight transportation funds.
No, it comes out of the T fund, so there will be.
I don't think just that general town highway aid is, which is oftentimes maintenance, which. And then
Well, they can do whatever they want with it, right? Isn't that the pot of money that they could buy a truck with it if they wanted to?
Yep. Yeah, they can buy a pickup truck. They can buy it.
There also must be a component in your company, in your organization, that searches for grants, competitive grants from the government. As far as when you guys are doing these projects and stuff like that. I've also often wondered whether some states have put in better organizations of seeking out types of money like that versus other states. Like any other business, some businesses run better than others. Do you guys have a component in there to where you're looking for maybe often missed grant opportunities?
Contract admin doesn't have a component specifically working on it now. We keep our ear to the rail. And when we hear something coming up, we're starting to talk to programs, trying to understand if they're going to be trying to access those funds and develop new grant programs so that we can get our templates and procurements in place and ready to execute when they're ready to send money, right? But
my impression was, maybe there's data on this, that Vermont AOT's been pretty successful compared to other states.
Yeah,
And getting grant applications approved, but maybe,
I would think that it would, of course, anything can be run poorly, but I would think that something along those lines could, it's like getting a grant writer for a town.
Like
It's-
rail was pretty much grant funded. In terms of grants for the single, for the welded single rail. It seems like certain areas of the transportation system is really dependent on those grant dollars. But that's not, you're not the one, you're more on the other end, how to manage, how to get the structure in place if the grant is approved.
Maybe easier to consider, oh, yeah, of course, that hand up behind you.
Yes.
If it makes me realize, to expand upon that just a little bit, the grants that we receive a lot of competitive grants and federal grant programs, and you are correct, we're very successful with those. And most of our funding from the federal government comes through a grant program, even though it's funneled in a pretty standard formula to us. And then our aviation and rail programs are significantly funded via grants, as well as our federal highway program. So as we receive the various buckets of money, and our CFO, Bradley Kuchenberger, could speak a little bit more to the specifics of the pots of funding. Those are then distributed either to AOT for our programs to implement, or some of them also flow through us to the grant programs. So Municipal Assistance Bureau and others manage the programs, and they operate the processes through Chief Stevens's program, through contract admin.
So essentially what I was gonna add is, contract admin manages the pass through when we're gonna pass it through to another subrecipient. That's generally agreements the contract administration is managing. And that's what I have for the grants team. And my last slide here is, we're always working on innovations and efficiencies, not only to make ourselves better, but to also help facilitate the contracting community, make things easier for them. And one of the big ticket items I'm sure you all have heard about is BT Buys. That is a project being managed by the Agency of Administration, specifically BGS and the Office of Purchasing and Contracting. And we're partnered with them, just trying to make sure that this new system is designed in a way that facilitates all of our agreement types, and not necessarily mimics what we do today, but continues to make things easier for us going forward in the future. Now, not all of our procurement types are going to go into the system. Our traditional design, bid, build is excluded from BT Buys, because that's a very fragile system that we have being operated by another system known as the construction management system. A lot of systems, I apologize. But you will see eventually, once this is tested and ready to implement, our services agreements, job order contracts, and indefinite delivery, indefinite quantities contracts will be going into this new software. So we're working hard on that this year. Rollout is expected to happen sometime mid to latter half of this year. And grants, I mentioned before that currently the notice of funding opportunities comes from the program itself. And they advertise that, and they do their scoring criteria and determine which subrecipients they're going to award. And we're working on a heat map of when those things are happening. Right? A lot of times we don't know until it's a little bit too late that we have a whole bunch of grants we need to execute. So we're trying to get a little bit better at that, try to get ahead of the game. And maybe if we can, start advertising some of those notice of funding opportunities ourselves, so that we have better control of when it's time to execute that grant. It's a lot of work to do there.
What is heat map?
Good question.
The first
Yeah.
time, maybe you're centered and you're familiar with that.
It's visualization to show the concentrate with large numbers.
So
This is not a heat map, but you could have a map with different colors in different towns that signify different things.
I do it for my election. Would you like to see it?
Yeah, he
No.
He'll do one for you.
So our heat map is basically a schedule of all of our programs, and we see them, okay, when is it gonna heat up? When is the work really gonna pick up? And is there opportunity for us to expand that a little bit? Maybe we don't have such a steep bell curve and we can extend it a little bit. That's what we're trying to do by heat mapping, is understand when it's gonna get hot and heavy,
Almost like workload management.
pretty much.
With colors.
Yeah, thank you.
Fewer words as well.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you.
Got
Appreciate
the
it.
end of
Thank
your
you all.
slides?
That was it.
Oh, okay.
Okay, next we have Kim.
I'll step out just so she's.
She's in the hallway.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. In case anybody cares, shouldn't send out 180 copies.
Just wanted proof where I was last week.
You had a picture taken before you went skiing. Good morning.
Good morning, how are you?
Good, good, welcome. Okay, agency, we're hearing the unit.
Yes,
Okay, tell us a little something about what you do.
sure. So my name is Kim Abraham. I am the senior hearing examiner with the Agency of Transportation Hearing Section. Our unit is comprised of 2 examiners. We preside over administrative hearings filed by customers appealing actions of DMV and AOT. So can't see the slide you're on, so. Oh, thank you. So our work includes determining eligibility, gathering evidence for hearings, scheduling and conducting the hearing, and finally writing and issuing the decision. A significant amount of our time is spent with customer service. We spend a lot of time helping customers answer their questions and kind of helping them work through the system.
These are hearings to the secretary, just to the agency or to the board? Transportation.
So just the Secretary of the Agency of Transportation and the Commissioner of Motor Vehicles. So those are the 2 areas.
There are hearings in front of the board. that somebody
There are,
else-
but we do not have any work, none of our work that pertains to
They
their
have their own
hearings.
staff.
Correct.
Lemon law, for example. nice.
Right, we are the backup for them though. So
Or
if-
if you hit a pothole on the roads, we don't, that goes to the transportation board.
I believe that goes to the transportation board, but I'm not positive. It's nothing that we would handle. So helping customers understand the underlying reason for an agency's action early in the process can go a long way to helping the customer find their way through the system or even resolve the matter prior to hearing. Our hearing types primarily include license suspensions and recalls, purchase and use tax, registration refunds, total abstinence program, financial responsibility, ignition interlock device violations, as well as National Driver Registry and the Non-Resident Violator Compact. We also deal with minor alterations and permit hearings for the AOT.
Yes.
Total abstinence program, does that also intersect DMV? So
That does intersect DMV, yes, yes. So for the Agency of Transportation, under Secretary Flynn, we hold generally 2 hearings, 2 types of hearings, permit 1111 applications. Those grant access for within state highways, and minor alterations hearing where we review and decide upon the necessity of activity or work proposed by AOT and establish conditions for accomplishing it. And that may include also the award of damages if it's applicable. In fiscal year 22, we received 1 permit and 7 minor alteration hearing requests. Of these requests, 1 permit hearing and only 2 minor alterations hearings went actually to hearing. Usually those are resolved by agency staff prior to hearing. AOT hearings do not comprise a large percentage of our total hearings, but they are a significant amount of the work that we do. They're very time consuming. For DMV, under Commissioner Manoli, we received over 275 hearing requests in fiscal year 22, and around 93% of those were approved for hearing. More than half of those were resolved without a hearing, and we held 123 hearings and issued 104 decisions. We upheld DMV action 70% of the time, and the remaining cases were either reversed or they were issued granting admission into the TA program, essentially reversing someone's lifetime suspension.
A hearing is asked when someone isn't happy with the decision that they received from AOT or something, I mean, from motor vehicle, like they didn't get their check returned or something, then they've asked for a hearing. That's, most of the time it's resolved ahead of time.
Yes, yes. Quite often we can like a refund hearing if it's a matter of, sometimes people make mistakes. So
Right,
if it was
right.
a denied an error, we can usually resolve those without a hearing. If there is something that requires a little bit more substantive review,
Right.
we'll take it to hearing, review the evidence, and then make a determination from that point on.
Yeah. You have a board, is hearing or just yourself or?
Just myself, there are 2 hearing examiners in the unit, and we work very collaboratively. So we review each other's decisions, and we like to maintain a lot of consistency in what we issue and how we view things.
So what is the appeals process after you issue, if I'm still aggrieved? Is it, for Human Services Board, it goes directly to the Supreme Court? What happens with the?
Ours generally go to Superior Court under Rule 74, 75, whatever is applicable. Most of them are Rule 74 appeals to the Superior Court.
how common is that?
We might see 6 appeals of our decisions in a year. It depends on the case type. We often see for the revocations of total abstinence, those will almost always go to appeal if we deny them.
And the 111 permits can, like a neighbor do appeal or only the applicant?
The applicant, I'm not sure if an interested party can appeal. I think they have to be a registered interested party into the action, so. And the actions generally are filed by, the landowner that it's affecting, so, or that's asking for the access. They can certainly appear at the hearing and file their agreement.
It has to be known, been like, for example, in local zoning, if somebody's gonna do something and you're an adjacent property owner, they have to notify.
Right.
But that's not required, right? If I wanna.
I don't think it is for permit 1111s, but I don't know all the details of permit 11.
Right of way at the highway, that's.
Correct. That's access egress from the highway. So if you want to add a driveway from your property
Right.
onto a state highway, that would be the permit 1111.
But I could see a neighbor wanting to weigh in on that.
Yes, and I'm sure there are additional aspects that I can't recall.
They don't like you.
Right.
Does that happen a lot here?
That was more of a rhetorical comment.
She owns all the houses around.
That's right, I solved that. I bought the neighborhood.
You got the walk.
So a majority of our DMV
Oh, I agree
hearings
with
are pro
myself.
se. So they are pro se petitioners. They're-
Generally, they are pro.
Generally, DMV hearings are pro se petitioners. We do have some attorney hearings, and those obviously are more involved.
And you follow the Administrative Procedures Act, like different rules?
We does not apply to our hearings. We do not have administrative rules for our hearings, and that's one thing we would like to change.
To make it,
To have some more uniform guidelines.
Regulation promulgation.
they could use it, but it would be much more onerous.
For hearings under the secretary, we do follow the Administrative Procedures Act, but for the DMV hearings, the Administrative Procedures Act does not apply to our hearings.
I tell everybody to call Mike Smith, so we can resolve.
There you
That's
go.
an easy answer.
So like many other areas of government, we all saw the impacts of COVID, and we continue to feel those impacts even after COVID. As COVID restrictions lifted, we saw a rise in our hearing requests. They came back up to more pre-COVID levels, if not a little higher. A majority of our hearings are still held by telephone, just as they were before COVID. And then as it became permissible, we opened up the option for in-person hearings. And this was particularly important for matters where it was beneficial for the customer to be able to be face-to-face with us. And so particularly if they had a physical or a cognitive defect, one of the hearings that we do hold are for a medical reason. And it could be a person who has some kind of a cognitive disability and they have trouble communicating. So being in person, face-to-face is often very beneficial for those customers. So it was really helpful for us to be able to go back to in person.
And when you say telephone, that includes Zoom, or that kind of.
We do continue to utilize Microsoft Teams. So we hold an in-person hearing if they wanted, and if they would rather have a Teams hearing, they can have a Teams hearing.
I was on my way home last night. It was dark, just outside of Hardwick, and there's flashing lights on the side of the road. I'm in a bad spot. I said, boy, something's not good here. And I see this person walking on the other side. I said, "Are you broke down? Can I help you or whatever?" And he said, "Oh no," he said, "I ran over a pothole." He said, "And busted my tire." They told me to go get a picture of it. And well, you're gonna have more than that in a second. You're gonna have a car crash. So, but anyway, you'll be hearing from me.
So by continuing to allow people to appear by Teams or in person or standard, which is by telephone, it allows us to make sure that all of our customers get to have the opportunity for a fair hearing. We had a customer, for instance, who had some kind of a neurological disorder. And so I think he was more neurodivergent. And for him, it was very difficult to be in person or to have to talk directly. So to be able to do a Teams hearing with somebody else present to kind of interpret for him so he'd feel like he was speaking directly to us was really important for him. And it allowed him to have a hearing, and we were able to help him out and to reverse the action that had been issued against him. So and it was just a misunderstanding because of the way he views the world. He read the form one way, and it wasn't required to be read that way. So that's it.
Okay. Any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you all for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you for
Thank you.
coming. Okay, next we have performance unit. We have 3 folks, and I guess, are you the lead, Manuel?
I am the lead.
Okay,
My other two folks send them in there.
good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
Tell us a little about something, what you do there. Oh, you got your team with you, okay.
Yes. So for the record, I'm Manuel Sains of the Agency of Transportation, and more specifically, I'm the Director of Performance and Strategic Initiatives. And I'm here with 2 of my staff, Amanda Gilman-Bogie and Kyle Brzezinski.
Morning.
And we're going to present to you what we do in the performance section. So hopefully you'll understand a little bit more about what we do. Next slide, please. So we service all of AOT, and I want you to think of 5 things as we go through this presentation: continuous improvement, innovation, data integrity, dashboards, and performance management, because those are key functions or outcomes of the work that we do. So we have a really easy vision to understand. We would like all employees in AOT to challenge the status quo, because if you challenge the status quo, we can generate some continuous improvement throughout the agency. And we do that by leveraging people, data, and tools. So in my section, I have 2 teams. One is continuous improvement and technical solutions team. They have 5 FTEs, and that's under Amanda's team. And they are they came up with this innovative idea to gather innovation ideas, and she's going to be talking a little bit more later about AOT Innovates, which is a program that we've implemented to collect grassroots innovations. Core to what we do is we facilitate continuous improvement engagements, which are process improvements of a lot of business units' processes. And we add value by reducing their processes, making them more efficient, reducing costs, and those sort of things. We also are guiding business process documentation. And within this team, I have a small group that's working on some small business technical solution using Microsoft Power Platform. We can do some really innovative things by moving large volumes of data from one place to another, and we can automate flows of documents and send out reminders to people and those sort of things. So this is a really interesting program for us that the team is working on. My other unit is business intelligence and data integration under Kyle. And we have 3 FTEs. And one of the biggest things that we do in that team is we develop business intelligence tools, which are basically dashboards. You'll hear a lot about dashboards, and that's what the main function of this team is. We create dashboards for 2 reasons. One is to measure performance metrics of each business unit throughout AOT. And the other is we create operational tools which can pull in large volumes of data and crunch it. And managers and people working on the line can actually analyze it and come up with data-informed decision-making much more quickly, and they can decide their next steps. And we actually have some slides that will show you a little bit about what we do there. So yeah, we leverage technology as well in this team. And again, Microsoft platform has a lot of, is really good for us to be able to do a lot of automation, and we can move things around and do better data analytics using that. New to this team this year, or last year actually, we took on the role of leading the agency with data governance. So we have ADS that does data governance of our mainframe data, but we have so many data sets that are in AOT. We don't have a platform on how we can manage those data sets. And so we created a steering committee last year, and at the end of the year, we end up having a committee, and we're launching this data governance committee this year, actually this month, actually this week. And we hope to improve data literacy by doing that. And all this, again, is all about making better data-informed decisions. And lastly, what this team is doing is because we have some really unique technical talent, we're coaching other teams throughout AOT on the kind of work that we're doing, and we're mentoring them to do the kind of things that we're doing. Next page, please. So I'm going to be really fast on this page because these are just the programs that we drive, and it's all about what I just told you about right now. And we do have some additional slides which Amanda and Kyle are going to get to. She's going to talk about AOT Innovates, and Kyle's going to talk about our agency performance system. That's a system where we actually have compiled all of the agency's performance metrics, and we have, it's a long drawn-out process. Amanda will talk about that. But one thing I wanted to make you aware of is that our team has responsibility for some agency reporting. We do the, so you're familiar with the annual fact book. So all the data content that's in the fact book comes from my team. So we work with Public Outreach, who has all the other content that goes into the fact book, but we provide them with the data content. Also, the team is responsible for supporting AOA with annual outcomes report, which is per state statute, and programmatic performance budget report. We do the metric side that gets compiled with the budget side and submitted to AOA. And lastly, on this team, I put in there, we have a dashboard maintenance program because our team has developed so many dashboards that are being used throughout AOT. We have over 50 dashboards, so we had to create a dashboard maintenance program so that we could manage them. You know, we have so many data sets that are coming into the dashboards. It's a pretty big task to manage and keep one. Next slide, please. So too many accomplishments to really talk about. We had 24 projects we actually completed in 2022. And to save time, we're not going to go through all this. What I have is Kyle and Amanda are actually going to get up and describe to you some of the projects that were accomplishments for 2022, unless you have any specific questions about this. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Amanda.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
I'll be back to the last two slides.
Good morning.
Mike, welcome.
Thank you. For the record, I'm Amanda Gilman-Bogey with the Agency of Transportation. I'm the supervisor of the Continuous Improvement and Technical Solutions Unit. Excited to be here with you today. I have two quick slides that I wanted to share. I get the fun job of telling you about some of the things we're really proud about. So the first one that I want to talk to you about is our AOT Innovates initiative. We launched this in July last year, 2022. And this is a program that we developed in-house within our team without any additional outside supports, but in collaboration with other DOTs across the nation and in reviewing best practices from private industry so that we could gather grassroots innovations, ideas, and problem-solving opportunities from our workforce, and then also gather implemented solutions. One of the things that we realized was that the best opportunity for us to make improvements is really coming from our workforce, not necessarily top down. It's really the people doing the work every day that we need to hear from. This program provides a framework with which we can gather those inputs. It also has an opportunity for people to share the things that have already gone really well. And we have a plan in place to recognize and reward folks so that we can try to drive engagement and participation in this program. So we're really excited about this. This is something that we've had going for a couple of months now. We have communications plans that we're developing for the coming year so that we can encourage people to continue to submit these ideas and successes. And we'll be featuring some of them at the annual Research and Innovation Symposium this coming fall. Next slide, please.
Well, it raises something in my mind, the old, remember the suggestion boxes that were never used? So the question is how you generate that kind of engagement or willingness to send forth ideas, because I don't know, I've worked in offices where they had suggestion boxes and suggestions were rarely made, or some of the stuff that did hit the box wasn't exactly suggestions. So
More statements.
right. So the question is how you take and create that kind of incentive to forward ideas, or you rely, sometimes it's a supervisor will forward it on, and then other people say, gee, we're doing this or whatever. They aren't really even thinking about it in terms of maybe innovation or transferability to, other employees. So I was just wondering what your response has been from the line staff.
That's a great question. Thank you for the opportunity to address that. One of the things that makes this a little bit different than sort of the historical suggestion box is that we're trying to foster an it's your baby attitude. So what we really don't want is for an employee to passively say, here's a problem or something I don't like, please fix it. Instead, what we'd like to do is engage them in the problem solving themselves. So we're asking them to join us. We can provide resources, training, we can facilitate conversations. We may be able to connect them with opportunities for funding if we know about grants they can apply for, or connect them with a subject matter expert that they could then work on that with. But they have an active part in this. So what we're really looking for is engagement. We really want the employees to join us and be a part of the problem solving. We've got a handful of submissions already, and we definitely know that the big push for us in the year ahead is to drive that engagement. One of the things that we're trying as part of our communication strategy is to establish some relationships and trust with these folks. So we're actually going to do visits out in the field. The first one will be at the maintenance garage in White River Junction next month, where we'll meet with our maintenance staff one-on-one so that we can talk to them about this initiative and that we can encourage them and ask, right on the spot in a conversation what some of their ideas are, as opposed to maybe asking them to respond to a poster or respond to, an email or something like that. So we're really hoping the relationship will help build that. We do also have 8 questions that we added to the employee engagement survey last year. It was a baseline for us before this program launched so that we could measure innovation across AOT. And then we will ask those same questions year to year, which will allow us the opportunity to kind of see how successful we are and where we need to target our efforts more. We look forward for the chance to kind of share with you in the years to come how it's going.
Good idea. Good idea.
Thank
Each
you.
agency's questions different for the engagement survey, or you added some to the statewide engagement survey just for your agency staff?
Yes, the latter. So the questions are standard across the state. However, you can add agency-specific questions. So if an employee indicates that they work for the Agency of Transportation at the end of the standard questions, they would receive the ones that we have added specific for us.
You just started that last year.
Last year, yes.
And who headed up that initiative? HR?
To add the questions to the survey?
No, the original survey, the core survey.
Oh, yes, it's a statewide survey that is done by the Department of Human Resources. Yes.
Thank you. Yes.
Your data integration efforts, is it siloed within AOT outside of DMV or really across Agency of Transportation, including the Department of Motor Vehicles and also sub-org units?
I'm going to defer to Kyle on our data questions because she's coming up next. We do have specific work that we do with each bureau or section, but I think she can speak a little bit more to some of your data questions.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yes.
I'm going to skip that other slide, Kyle, for time and let you go.
Oh, sure. Thank you. So for the record, my name is Kyle Opazinski. You can go one more. Okay, great. So first I was planning to talk about our performance management system that we have built over the last couple of years. These are a collection of visualizations. We worked with all divisions and departments in order to gather the data. I want to draw an analogy to where we get the term dashboard. You've heard it a lot already in our presentation. But to ground us in where that comes from, it's from your vehicle of your car.
Well, thank you. That's what I was my dashboard.
Right? So you have a dashboard, you've got some measures, right? Things that measure how fast you're going, how much gas you have in the tank.
Yeah.
It needs to be easy to read. And then there's a couple of indicators in there, that old check engine light that comes on. The dashboard doesn't tell you what's wrong. You need to bring it to an expert in order to figure out why that check engine light is on. But it's easy to read, right? You can glance down at it and see exactly the information that you need. You look at it frequently, and it's pulling in data and information from disparate systems all over that vehicle, from thousands of data points, all to be presented in a nice, clean, easy to read format in front of you while you're driving. So this performance measurement system is our digital equivalent. We want it to be a quick snapshot of both measures and indicators. In this particular slide here, you'll see the number 16. That's how many projects, how much work are you doing, right? quantity speedometer. And then on the right-hand side, that's an indicator. 56% is in red. It means that we're not reaching our targets. Then we start asking questions. We go to the subject matter experts and we say, why are we not hitting our targets? What can we dig in on there? Just like you plug the check engine, your car into a reader, it might say, oh, the data's off, needs to be reset. Let's keep driving. Could be a deeper problem, right? So we'll find the same things and help folks across the agency with interpreting these easy to read dashboards. So we have set out to what we wanted to accomplish in this phase of the program, which is to work with each of the divisions and sections to figure out what their most important measures and indicators are. So next up, we're going to be working with leadership to make sure they're used on a regular basis. And out of those conversations, we expect two things to happen. One is, well, maybe that indicator is not right because we're doing okay, but it says we're not meeting our goal. How can we make that more accurate to what's actually going on? We would call that an enhancement. That's part of the continuous improvement theory called PDSA, which is plan, do, study, adjust. So we revisit, we make it better, we plug in that check engine light, and we get them back driving on the road. Or we might find a deeper problem that could be a process problem. That's where Amanda's team comes in and helps the multiple departments that are involved in that system, right, in order to map things out and see where we might be able to improve, right? So this is a tool for us to be able to find out at a glance places for improvement. Next slide. This is an example of an operational dashboard. So this is a little bit different than the first one. This is when you go to the subject matter expert, you plug the check engine light and you see what's going on. There's multiple filters in this dashboard here. They use it on a day-to-day basis to make those data-driven decisions that Manny was referring to, because they're able to say, well, how much money, how many hours, which type of activity, all these different things they can manipulate. And this is for the district maintenance and fleet, and the cyclical bridge maintenance dashboard is what it's called. So they literally that morning or the afternoon before will be able to look at this dashboard, see where they're hitting their goals, and make decisions for the very next day as to what the crews are going to be working on. This also helped repurpose one full-time employee through automation that Manny was talking about. So one full-time person was doing all of the reporting, and they've now been able to focus on different things now that they have a tool in place for that. Next slide. And then this here is our portfolio of projects. This is kind of a two-pronged, our goals were two different things here. One was to help us with the automation of the weekly report, which we send to Jana, and that goes up to the secretary. And also for us to have an easy replace for progress on all of our projects that we're working on. Are we working on the right things? Do we need more staff? When can we take on new projects, which is a question that Jana asks quite frequently. So that's just kind of an example of a custom built dashboard that we made for ourselves. And we can replicate this. The weekly report portion of it, we actually replicated for the VTTC, and they are now using the same tool, which we love to see our tools repurposed because again, that saves time. Work smarter, not harder, right? That's kind of our motto. In terms of data integration, each of our analysts will be able to pull in information, and there's a little bit of negotiation in that, but if there's data out there, we figure out how to plug into it so that we can have it displayed here. In the maintenance program, that's one of the things that breaks a lot, right? So that pie chart's empty, why is that pie chart empty? That's the maintenance and tracking program of looking at the data source. Changing your password is something that takes a lot of time away from our staff, and it's kind of a headache. But those are the types of things we might be able to uncover with the integration piece of it. Do you have any other follow-up questions on that? Okay. All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm back for the last two slides. Okay, very quick. This is V-Transparency, and I assume that most of you have used V-Transparency before, but if not, so this is a public-facing portal. It has a lot of data inside this portal, and you can view it and make in these. These are just examples of what you can view in there. So current road conditions, highway maintenance, project data, rail, pavement, bridges. So my team doesn't own the content or the data that's behind it. It's actually being pulled out of many systems, and it's being shown here in vTransparency. So you can either vTransparency.vermont.gov, or you can do vtrans.vermont.gov, and it'll be at the bottom. And you click on vTransparency. So my team created the user interface. It's kind of like how you see it right now and how you navigate it. So if you have any issues, you can come to my team and ask us any questions or issues. You can just come to us. Next slide, please. So this is the last one. And so our plan work for 2023 is a whole lot of what we're already doing. And I think Amanda talked about AOT Innovates. We have a lot more work to do on AOT Innovates. I mentioned earlier, we're going to roll out data governance and build that program up more. Kyle said we're going to do another iteration on agency performance system, and we're going to go back to all the directors in AOT and find out what dashboards they're using, what ones they're not, how can we improve them.
I think that's really important, because sometimes we just never go back and say, does it have the utility that you would like?
Yeah.
Or, and I frankly, that report we get out from the state chief performance officer is a tremendous amount of work, but I'm not sure what the utility is relative to the amount of staff time it would take to prepare that. And it's a full-time position. So my concern is that we not keep adding and adding, but we look at what is useful, what is not, what is missing, what gets jettisoned, because it seems like all we do is accumulate and add.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I mentioned before, we have 50+ dashboards. So if they're not using the dashboard, we want to sunset it, or we want to make something better for them that they can utilize in the future. So that is the end of my presentation. So if you have any questions, please. What questions?
Okay.
Thank you very
All right,
much.
we got one more, I believe. Okay, thanks, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Okay. Brad's here. Okay. All right,
Good morning.
Here's Michelle too.
Michelle, wrap it up. There you go. Okay, go right ahead. Tell us a little something what you do.
For the record, my name is Brad McAvoy. I'm the facility manager for AOT. I'll just give you a brief overview of what we do and what we take care of and things we've accomplished over the last year. So we focus primarily on all AOT facilities right now, including all the maintenance garages, airports. We do some works at the rail stations, D&B locations, any new construction projects, renovations, rehabs, even minor preventive maintenance work all funnels through our shop. We do also provide the towns with some sample shed plans. They occasionally reach out and say, could you help provide us some plans for our use, or give us some estimates on what a new salt shed may cost. So we help facilitate that. The internal services group is also falls under our shop. They work with BGS on any new leases. We deal with BGS security on badges and access to our buildings. They also do all the postal work and mail sorting within the agency. We facilitate all the contracts for new construction, the JOC contracts. Jeremy spoke to you earlier about that. Right now, I have about 30 contractors on retainer. They can do time and material work. They can do other bid work. The larger stuff would go out for a full bid through BGS. And we also liaison with BGS for any other work, and we'll help looking for space, or sometimes they come to us looking for space. So we help facilitate that as well. I'll just give you a few stats on what our current infrastructure looks like. Right now, we have 424 buildings that AOT owns and operates. That could range anywhere from a 10-bay maintenance facility to just a small woodshed, but all of them may require work of some sort over the years. That's about 1.4 million square feet of space with a full replacement cost of last year's risk management audit of about $161 million.
Yes.
424 buildings and you're maintaining them. BGS is it, or?
These are strictly AOT owned buildings. Though that does include the rest areas, which they operate and do maintain right now. AOT technically owns them, so that's on the BGS ones, yeah, totally separate from that, so.
We own a lot of buildings in the state, so. Gee.
So just below that, we also have 6 leases there that we manage, but, and below there is just some stats. So we have, I know maintenance has been testified, but we have 59 complexes that we operate the highway garages out of. We have 38 buildings at the airports, 22 buildings in the rail portfolio. We do some of the work at the way stations if they have problems with the scales or when they are operating out of those. 20 rest area welcome center locations. Some other stats where we're trying to progress on reducing emissions and just trying to be more clean energy efficient. Currently we have 10 solar arrays that we own, 19 outdoor wood boilers. We did complete last year the Tunbridge Garage, which was our first fully green building. They're even doing electric chainsaws there. So at that site we have solar, we have an outdoor wood boiler. We converted our ceiling mounted oil furnace to heat pumps, which is actually working quite well. It's a smaller garage. It's a great test site. It's only a 2-bay garage, so it's perfect for that site. Last year, we completed 13, all of our district offices now, as well as our lease buildings, the big ones, have level 2 charging capabilities. We're looking to expand level 3 in the future as that equipment comes in and those needs arise. And we just completed our 13 garages so far this fiscal year with full retrofits of the high bay garage lights.
How much you spend a year?
Our major maintenance appropriate or within the maintenance fund, but it's usually about 1.2 million we get each year to do those
Well, you got a lot to do.
those types of projects.
Are the heat pumps in this garage, are they the gathering part of the energy? Is it below grade?
They're not.
Okay, so above grade, and they're performing.
They're performing well, but the people that are working there are very happy. It's a nice dry building now. We did spray foam the entire building as well as part of that process. Overall, it was a good project.
Questions? Counselor.
Just a couple other accomplishments.
Yeah, on the 11 DMV, we actually own those DMV sites, or are they leased?
A couple of the sites, White River and Dummerston, are in AOT owned
They
space.
are.
The rest of them are in leases, but we do occasionally get involved in helping them with any building changes, or if they have questions on leases, if they may reach out to us, do you have space we may be able to use. We have helped with some of the DMV testing areas for motorcycle and CDL testing as well. We also this year completed our first iteration of a Facebook. There is a link, I think, that was emailed out where it breaks down every facility, the garage, what the building was, the year it was constructed, what the replacement costs would be. So far this fiscal year, we've completed 660, it's about 680 right now, projects where we've had to utilize one of our JOC contractors. So it's a pretty good workload. And a lot of you can kind of see the breakdown there for planned work that we knew and we went out and we planned to do, and then you get the problems where you may get a call that morning, hey, our heat's not working. So those are all captured under the unplanned work total. And the last slide is just a couple pictures of some of our outdoor wood boiler installations and our LED upgrades. We did just complete Barton and Eden wood boilers this year.
Yeah, do you use all the wood that you're cutting?
We're cutting cord right away, wood out of the right of way. If there's trees that look like they're starting to lean or anything that comes down from the storm, we're cutting that. The boilers we use are gasifier boilers, so try to put that wood up and season it for at least one year before we burn it.
Is it 100% of the wood you burn now you're cutting yourself?
Yeah, we're not buying any wood presently, even with 19 boilers going. So
And does this replace, I know at some point in the past, you had wood stoves inside the maintenance.
Some of them have replaced the indoor wood stoves. We actually don't have any indoor ones currently operating. So the last two we finished this year, Eden and Barton were the last two indoor.
And were these replacing like those indoor or old outdoor boilers, or were they replacing fossil fuels?
They replaced indoor wood boilers at that two sites in particular.
And the way that they each get transferred inside the building, it's a blower model type, or is it radiant heat? or-
They're blower models on the Tunbridge garage site. Yeah. With wood.
But the wood boilers, so the wood boilers in themselves, how does that heat get transferred within the building?
We have different applications. We have a couple of garages, or one in particular, Enosburg, where our slab was actually getting really bad inside the garage. So we actually saw cut the entire slab out, put in radiant tubing, and we tied the outdoor wood boiler to heat the slab. And that worked really well.
That works well, that heated, that slab works out here.
The ones we've been retrofitting that don't, we do a backup system, a ducted system. If the outdoor wood boiler temp gets below a certain level, it'll kick on a backup heat system. Most of those are now propane. We've gone away from oil wherever we can, working to cut those costs down.
Any further questions? Thank you very much. Great update. Appreciate it.
One question, when you did the buildings, the 13 buildings with LED, was that something that Efficiency Vermont was able to help us out with?
We actually used state funds for that. We have in the past utilized the BGS State Revolving Energy Fund with Brian Sewell and that group. We kind of planned out to do these this year just to, they're more efficient. The guys like them a lot better. It brightens the garage up. You know, those can be a little darker situations. Working on their trucks, it's a lot brighter situation than they want to, not to mention the cost savings.
But is there, I think Senator Eagles was asking, like, did you get an incentive from Efficiency Vermont?
We got the rebates directly from the contractors installing the system.
Okay, so somewhere along the way, we realized some of our investments into that.
We're getting the direct rebates from the fixtures themselves when they pour them.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
You all did a great job, Michelle.
Excellent. We have a good team.